We are diving deep today into an idea that, honestly, it really challenges how we think about success.
We're looking at the research of Angela Duckworth.
And her work has become foundational in, business and psychology for a reason.
Absolutely. Because she essentially argues that this thing we're all obsessed with, intelligence IQ, is not the main predictor of who actually succeeds in life.
Right. The data just doesn't bear it out. And if you've ever felt like you're working hard but not getting anywhere, this deep dive is definitely for you.
So our mission today is to go past just defining her famous concept, grit. We want to figure out how you actually build it.
And to get into the why do some incredibly smart, talented people just flame out? And why do others who seem average on paper go on to do these extraordinary things?
And Duckworth's answer, after a decade of research, is that it all comes down to this one characteristic.
Grit, but to really get it, you have to understand where the idea came from for her.
Yeah, her origin story is fascinating. She wasn't an academic at first. She was a high-flying management consultant, and she just walked away from it. At 27, she decided to go teach math to middle schoolers in New York City.
And that classroom, it became her first laboratory, right?
Exactly. Because she started noticing something that just didn't add up.
The smartest kids in the room, the ones with the highest IQs, who got the concepts instantly.
They were often the first to give up. The moment the math got really genuinely hard, they just quit.
Whereas the students who maybe struggled a bit at the start, the ones who had to, keep trying different ways to solve a problem.
Those were the ones who, by the end of the year, were at the top of the class. It was this powerful, totally counterintuitive observation.
I was like, if you never had to struggle, you never developed the muscle for it.
That's it. And that idea was so compelling to her that she actually left teaching to pursue psychology full-time. She studied thousands of people in the most demanding fields you can imagine.
Sports, business, the military.
Even the National Spelling Bee. And she was looking for that one common thread.
And it wasn't money, it wasn't luck, it wasn't even raw talent.
It was grit. But we need to define that properly because the word gets thrown around a lot.
Right. It's not just working hard.
No. Her definition is very specific. It's passion and perseverance for long-term goals.
And that long-term part is everything. This isn't about one all-nighter to finish your project.
No, it's about endurance. It's about committing to something for years, maybe even a decade. It's living life like a marathon, not a sprint.
The best example of this has to be her West Point study. I mean, this is an institution that has perfected the selection process over centuries.
Oh, absolutely. They have months of brutal physical tests, academic exams, leadership interviews. It's designed to find the absolute best of the best.
And here's where it gets wild. Duckworth found that none of those things, not the fitness scores, not the IQ tests, none of it.
None of it reliably predicted who would actually survive the first, most brutal phase of training they call beast barracks.
They just failed as predictors.
Completely. And you know it did work. A simple, short questionnaire she developed called the grit scale.
Okay, I have to jump in here. Are we seriously saying a 5-minute quiz is more accurate than months of intense military vetting? I mean, couldn't people just lie on it, say what they think the Army wants to hear?
That's a great question, and it's the obvious one. But the key is that this scale wasn't a pass-fail test to get in. It was just for her research. And what it measured wasn't your ability right now in a snapshot.
Yeah.
It measured your patterns over time. It asked things like, do you stick with projects for more than a few months?
So the regular tests measure talent, what you can do today.
Exactly. But the grit scale measures commitment, what you're willing to keep doing tomorrow and the day after that, even when it's awful.
That really gets to the heart of it. It reminds me of that story she tells about the tech entrepreneur.
Oh, the product launch. A total disaster.
0 sales, 0 investor interest. And everyone was telling him, just give up, bury this idea.
But he didn't. He had a choice. Quit the goal or quit the method. He chose to quit the method. He persisted.
And he didn't just relaunch the same failed product. He took notes, he talked to users, he refined the whole thing from the ground up.
It took him 5 versions, years of work, and then, finally, it hit. Became a massive success.
Duckworth's lesson there is so powerful. Successful people don't succeed because they never fall. They succeed because they have the patience to get up one more time than they fall down.
But we have to add a really important nuance here. This is where people can get the wrong idea about grit.
Right. This is not about just banging your head against a wall.
No. If you have a terrible singing voice, grit is not going to make you a pop star. That's just stubbornness. You have to apply perseverance to an area where you have at least some aptitude.
So how does that work? How do talent and effort mix?
She has a simple formula for it. She says talent times effort equals skill.
Okay, makes sense. Talent helps you learn faster.
Right, but then, and this is the important part, it's skill times effort that equals achievement.
Wait, so effort is in there twice?
It's in there twice, it counts twice, it's the multiplier. Which means over the long run, it's exponentially more important than talent alone.
So the person with a little less talent but a lot more persistence will eventually just blow past the talented person who quits.
That's the idea. And it's why she says grit itself has two main parts. First is passion, that deep devotion to a goal.
And the second is perseverance, the insistence on getting there no matter what.
The problem is most of us have one but not the other. You have people who are passionate, they start new things every 6 months with huge excitement.
And then they drop it at the first obstacle. I know that person. I've been that person.
We all have. And then you have people who can persevere, they can grind away at anything, but without passion, the work feels empty and they eventually burn out. True grit is that sweet spot where both meet.
I think the violinist Itzhak Perlman is maybe the perfect example of that.
Oh, absolutely. He contracted polio as a child, couldn't use his legs, had to play sitting down. Just immense physical challenges.
But his passion for the violin was just unshakable.
Yeah.
So he practiced endlessly.
And this is the truly gritty part he shared. On days when he was in too much pain to even lift the instrument, he would practice in his mind. He'd run through scales, complex pieces, just mentally.
That's incredible.
And he said later that his real advantage wasn't his talent. It was his muscle to continue despite his fatigue.
Which is what Duckworth means when she says, passion starts you, but grit enables you to finish.
Exactly.
So that brings us to the really practical part. The part you, listening to this, can actually use. If grit is a muscle, how do we build it? Duckworth lays out 4 components. Let's start with the first one, interest.
Interest is the foundation. It has to be. Because if you are genuinely curious about something, the work doesn't feel like a chore. The struggle actually becomes, well, interesting.
But people think you find your passion by, sitting alone and thinking really hard about it until you have a breakthrough.
And she says it's the total opposite. You don't think your way to an interest. You discover it by interacting with the world. You have to try things.
Do a low-stakes experiment.
Yes. Her advice is brilliant. If you think you want to be an entrepreneur, don't write a 50-page business plan. Just try to sell one thing online. A pen. Anything.
And see if you actually enjoy the process, the hassle of it.
Exactly. See if the reality of it sparks something. Once you've found that spark, then you move to the second component. Deliberate practice.
This is where the real work begins. And it's not just repetition, right?
No, that's the biggest misconception. Deliberate practice is not just going through the motions. It is about intentionally stepping outside of your comfort zone.
So working on your weaknesses.
Directly on your weaknesses. A chess master doesn't just play games. They study the specific positions where they always lose. A pianist will slow down a difficult passage and play it over and over until it's perfect.
It's focused. It's measurable.
Yeah.
And it's usually not very fun.
It's not. It requires setting what she calls stretch goals. Goals that are hard but not impossible.
That Goldilocks zone.
Precisely. And then getting immediate feedback on your performance so you can adjust. It's a constant loop of push, fail, feedback, adjust.
So interest gets you in the game. Deliberate practice makes you better. What's next?
The third component, and this might be the most important for longevity, is purpose.
The why behind the what.
Exactly. It's the meaning behind all that practice. She uses the old story of the 3 bricklayers.
Right. One says, I'm laying bricks. The next says, I'm building a church.
And the third says, I am building the house of God. He has a purpose that transcends the task. Let's use a modern example. Imagine 2 software engineers.
Okay.
You ask the first one what they do. They say, I write code to get a paycheck.
A task.
A task. You ask the second one, they say, I'm building a tool that's going to help millions of people access education. When that second engineer hits a massive frustrating bug at 2 a.m., they're more likely to push through it because it's part of a bigger mission. That's purpose. It's what connects your personal effort to the welfare of others. And it's what fuels you when passion and interest start to fade, because they will.
And that leads to the fourth and final component, hope.
And this isn't passive hope, like I hope things get better. It's an active, resilient belief.
It's a belief in your own ability to make things better.
Yes. It's that internal voice that says, this setback is temporary. My effort matters. I can learn from this and improve. People with grit don't see failure as a verdict on their
They
abilities.
see it as feedback, as data.
Right. And that belief is what allows them to get back up after they get knocked down.
This all sounds incredibly powerful, but we have to throw in a word of warning here, don't we? It's really easy to confuse this kind of flexible grit with just being stubborn.
That is a critical distinction. Duckworth has this fantastic line: stubbornness is born of blindness. Grit is born of vision.
What does it mean exactly?
Stubbornness is when you stick to your method, even when it's clearly failing. Flexible grit is when you stick to your vision or your goal, but you're constantly willing to change your method based on new information.
You're loyal to the facts, not your first idea.
Yes. The story of BlackBerry is the perfect cautionary tale.
Oh, man. Their founder, Mike Lazaridis.
When the iPhone came out, he just stubbornly insisted for years that nobody wanted the internet on their phone. He was completely blind to the evidence.
He was loyal to his keyboard-centric idea.
And that stubbornness drove the company from 50% of the market to basically zero. He refused to quit his method, so the market quit him.
And you contrast that with a company like Apple. They are relentlessly gritty in their overall vision to change how we communicate.
But they are famously willing to be flexible in the method. They'll scrap entire prototypes, fire whole teams, and start from scratch if an idea isn't working.
They're loyal to the vision, not the version. That's flexible grit.
And if there's one final story to anchor all of this, it's Duckworth's own. She talks about how her father, growing up, would constantly tell her, you know, you're no genius.
Wow, that's rough.
It is. But instead of letting it defeat her or trying to prove him wrong about her intelligence, she just decided to try harder, to be more persistent.
And she eventually ends up on the Time 100 list of people changing the world.
And her conclusion after everything was so simple. She said, my father was right. I wasn't a genius, but I was persistent. You make a difference not because you are smart, but because you are persistent.
It's so interesting how we as a culture almost do the opposite. We romanticize talent. We look at a top athlete and say, oh, they were born for it.
We do. We completely ignore the thousands of hours of grueling, deliberate practice and failure that actually built their skill. It's a way of letting ourselves off the hook, you know?
If I'm not instantly amazing at this, it must not be for me. It's an excuse that kills grit before it can even start.
Exactly. So this is our challenge to you, listening right now. Think about a goal you gave up on.
That language you wanted to learn, that instrument you put down, the book you started writing, something you were passionate about, but it got hard and you stopped.
And here's the final thought we want to leave you with. What if you just committed to trying that thing again for just 10 minutes a day?
Not a huge, overwhelming commitment. Not 3 hours on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Just 10 focused minutes every day.
Because often, real grit isn't about grand, heroic gestures. It's just the quiet accumulation of those small, consistent 10-minute efforts.
So pick that one thing. Start your own 10-minute experiment. You might just discover that the persistence was in you all along. It just needed a little bit of consistency to get going.